So I'm introducing Barb B. Fulton Jens, or Barb Jens. The Poet Laureate of Ridgefield, Connecticut, B. Fulton Jens, serves as an educator and poet in residence for the Aldrich Contemporary Art Museum, where she develops poetry programming and special events. Her poems have or will appear in the Comstock Review, Tupelo Quarterly, Night Heron Barks, Connecticut River Journal, Art Ascent, Tar River Poetry, Stone Canoe, Naugatuck River Journal, Frost Meadow Review, and other publications. And her poem, Lessons of a Cruel Tide, was awarded first place in the Writer's Digest annual competition in the rhyming poetry category. Jen's chapbook, Blinded Birds, will be published by Finishing Line Press in the fall of 2021. She considers having introduced thousands of students to spoken word poetry, the highlight of her career as a public school English teacher. So awesome. Everybody, please welcome.
Did you mention she's a poet laureate?
Oh, yeah, that was the first thing.
Sorry,
well,
there's so much great stuff after that I forgot. Okay.
I know that she's the Poet Laureate of Ridgefield, Connecticut. Barb Jens. Hey, Barb.
Guys, happy anniversary almost, you two.
Oh, thank you so much. We're thrilled to have you, Barb, and so excited that you get to round out this awesome year that we've had together.
I'm really excited. Thank you for having me, and I hope I do you proud.
Thanks.
Well, good evening, everybody. The whole Jennings clan is here, I'm pretty sure. So hello. I'm going to start tonight with a poem that I didn't expect to read, but I came across it today, and I just like it. So I'm going to break the ice with this one. It's kind of an angry poem, which is very different from a lot of the other poems that I'll be reading. But first I have to show you this. Let me get a little closer here so you can see it. This is the cerebrospinal nervous system of a person, a female, which currently is displayed at the Hahnemann College of Medicine at Drexel University. It's been there for several decades, and it has kind of an iffy history. It is the nervous system of a woman who was a scrub woman at the university, who used to clean the labs of the doctor who flayed her, basically. And there is some question as to whether or not she really actually ever donated her body to science after she died, or before she died. She couldn't do it after, you know. But anyway, so I want to read this poem. It's called The First Complete Dissection of the Human Cerebrospinal Nervous System, or Did Harriet Cole foresee that death would not end the ways the world would ravish the temple of her? And then just a little note first. With no evidence that Harriet Cole bequeathed her body to him, questions remain how Dr. Weaver of the Hahnemann Medical College at Drexel University procured the scrub woman's cadaver. Rufus B. Weaver laid Harriet out on a bed of cold steel, smoothed back her hair, then took up hammer and chisel, chipped away at her stubborn skull, careful to preserve the brown eyes still attached to their optic nerves, slivered away brown flesh, red muscle, tendon, bone, brandished a fine needle to tease each nerve from the plated spinal cord that once bent over buckets and brooms in the good doctor's lab. Shrouded each ghostly thread of her in damp winding cloths until at last the unseen network of Harriet's aliveness, fully flayed, could be sheathed in white lead paint, splayed like the roots of a tree ripped from soil, then tacked to a blackboard, pin by pin by pin. Today, as students flit before Harriet's lidless eyes outside the busy campus bookstore, one pauses to survey this useless art. The fringed hobgoblin with looped fingers and toes, tree-like whiskers, cartoon eyeballs, glockenspiel ribs, trails of white tears. Then she hurries on, pondering the pastor's reading from last Sunday, the one where Ezekiel breathed life into the long-dead Israelites, a vast army rising from the valley of dry bones. So my tribute to Harriet Cole. I'm going to pull up my poems here now. I'm going to be reading now from the chapbook, which Katie mentioned, that's coming out. Actually, I just found out the other day that it won't actually be released until early next year, but it is, they're doing pre-orders in fall this year. It's called Blinded Birds, and it is the tale of 3 generations of actually sort of genetic maladies in my family. There's been a lot of research in the last couple of decades into what's called the A1 allele, which is a mutation on a dopamine receptor in the brain. And they very strongly have links to everything from ADHD to severe alcoholism to intractable PTSD, and also to all sorts of addictions, but also to childhood onset depression and anxiety. So it's just this one little mutation on one little gene that can throw, a total hammer into everyone's lives and into their family lives. I don't think there's a family existing today that doesn't have some very strong connection to addiction or depression. My heart is with you, and I'm going to be sharing some works from my chapbook, which cover this very sensitive topic. I'm going to start with one called, excuse me, Other Hungers. I'm going to take a sip here, excuse me. Other Hungers. Admonished to sit like a lady or else, I pin pony shoulders to pew back, folded white gloved hands in my lap, and pondered otherworldly reflections in the patent leather shoes that gleamed just beyond the innocence of ankle socks. Sporadic hymns heralded by the organ's blast required us to stand, welcome relief from our minister's stultifying voice and the numbing repetition of bowed heads. Soon, somber men delivered round trays of crustless white bread cut into cubes, then doll-sized glasses, expertly underfilled with amethyst liquid. The trays passed, adult hand to adult hand, at exactly my eye level. When I was old enough to share the sacrament of body and blood, my envy of the hallowed had been replaced by other hungers. The blessed churn of cheap vodka at the back of my throat, the salty dispersion of semen on my silent, grace-seeking tongue. The next one is called Every Bad Thing That Happened to Me, and it's a lead-in title. Every bad thing that ever happened to me happened when I was drunk, I'll say in retrospect. But right now I'm 14 and 3 beers into a stolen 6-pack, kissing Teddy Briscoe, whose tongue trembles and frolics after mine, whose saliva is sweet, and who pauses a moment to take off his glasses and bed them in the warm grass beside us. Music from the firehouse teen hop echoes across the lake, and while we kiss, the silent moon saunters across the sky. For the first time in my life, I felt normal. That's what I'll say, what we all say, giving a speech at the AA celebration held to honor a year of sobriety. But for now, it's truth with a capital T, and the awakening rewardometer in my brain is setting off alarms, red lights, bells, applause. When my father picks me up at the firehouse hours later, he asks if I stayed out of trouble. I want to tell him the truth. I want to describe the feeling of tumblers falling into place in a safe door, of rockets released at last from gravity's dark hold. And this goes a little bit later in the book, where my husband and I are trying to conceive our daughter, Mallory. How I Quit Drinking for You. Despite desperate relief on fertility clinic tables, amulets gripped under pillows, when my longing for you yielded only monthly blood, I doubted and raged, cursed the miserly universe. God answered, sent a sign as I staggered from party to car. A just-hatched chick, featherless, pink, tossed from the nest, unnoticed on the sidewalk. a barely discernible crunch of frail calcium twigs. That night I drained bottle after bottle into the sink's drunken gullet, set about building a nest that would not spill its fragile contents. Imagine my hands, untrembling, able to catch falling things. The next one is called Mother's Milk. A weary nurse wheels you down the hall, wailing for mother's milk. My breasts ache with the call of you, but as the door gapes open, piercing the bed with sick yellow hospital light, I know that I will fail. My nipples retract, refuse to surface. Your nascent tongue folds back upon itself. We both long for what we cannot have. The pediatrician frowns at your declining weight, orders me to drink beer. For 7 years, I had pushed the leaden stone of sobriety up an interminable slope. Here at last, a reason to let it go. Let it bounce and bang to the bottom of a cairn of prayers. Soon, poison milk fills my breasts, and when you reject my offering with a yowl, I understand. I'll never shield you from my hunger, never save you from your own. Black bread. My mother was lovely, I believed. She wore her sadness as a gown. It swirled around her ankles in thick ripples, its bodice cut low across her chest to reveal that dark crevasse between her breasts that fractured straight to her heart, weighted her down like the Virgin Queen incapacitated by hideous finery. I spent my days alone with her. She fed me black bread made from black flour, kept in a black canister. It tasted like love. She wrote the recipe on my soft skin, instructed me to bake it for my children. You cried the first time I fed you a tiny morsel mixed with something sweet to cloak the afterbite. Like so many things worth having, it takes time to develop a taste for bitterness. You'll see me wear her gown tomorrow and the next day. I keep it hidden in the darkest depths of my closet and only put it on when you and I are alone. Someday you'll think I'm lovely. Someday the gown will fit you. Hush now, eat your bread. Alky Mommy. You crawl over me as I'm fixed to the floor flat as roadkill. You find the scene hilarious, clambering over this immobile mommy log. There is a dark humor to it. You have your little bottle, mommy has hers. You sit and smile a toothless grin, as bright as the too loud bulb burning overhead. This was great fun, you seem to say. Let's do it again, Alky Mommy. Not to worry, we won. Not to fret. The lesson has only begun. And this is farther into the collection where my daughter is starting to develop some abuse issues of her own. Guzzle, to a wild child grown. How often did I augur it, the misery of chasing you down corridors of rotten stone that turned to dust, erasing you? How countless were those fathom doors that led to you, but there within, a kneeling man with chalk in hand, his forehead lowered, tracing you. These fears came early. You were drawn to risk and peril from the start. A burning candle, busy roads. My days were spent outpacing you. The willful child grew wanton wings and flew to each temptation posed. A wall on drugs, withdrawn from life, the bait of boys debasing you. What need would draw you, sure as breath, to crave all things precarious, although you knew the sure outcome, the weight of guilt disgracing you? An unkind God has engineered innate seduction, cellular, that draws its dupes to sure defeat, the denouement unlacing you. My Fulton blood transferred that trait, long lineage of lustful souls, who, though the curse wrought their despair, surround you now, embracing you. well, the topic of this poem will be very apparent. It is an ekphrastic poem that refers not only to Peter Bruegel's Fall of Icarus, but also the W.H. Auden poem, Musée des Beaux-Arts, both of which concern themselves with Icarus, the son who flew too near the sun with waxen wings and fell into the ocean and died. We just get tricky. It's called Eating Dinner After You Died. Just hours ago, I found you ashen and cold on the floor of your sun-swaddled room, the needle beside you as splendid in design, as lethal in misuse as Icarus's waxed wings. I did not witness your fall from grace, only hurried to a thud, as Daedalus, no doubt, hearkened to a splash. Such innocent sounds, onomatopoeias, Marys in the mouth of children. I lent you lungs full of my half-used breath, swallowing fury and fear like poisoned prayers, waiting for sirens to turn up our street, to turn back time in a miraculous reanimation. Now you sit beside me and sip soup off a spoon with your pink again lips, swallow, stare at the TV, at raging fires, caged children, the shot dead, the turned away. Then sip, swallow, stare again. Even you, so newly scolded by the sun after aiming for an ecstasy not meant for this earth, your white legs disappearing into deep oblivion, even you, quite leisurely, turn away from disaster. Did Daedalus learn something about hubris as he watched his son plummet into the laughing sea? And what am I to learn from this echo of error? I crafted your wings from my own blood and hours. Tomorrow, the untroubled world will resume. The plowman will walk dully behind his horse. Expensive, delicate ships will hoist their sails. The fisherman will gaze lazily at a tug on his line. And only the fish ripped gasping from the sea, the whipped horse, the scurvy-ridden sailor, the father, the mother who wrestled Thanatos and now Inquisition, will glimpse something startling and not turn away. A few more in this collection. This is called To Another Addict's Mother. Waiting is a mother's art. We do it well. Time does not melt in our mouths. Through winters and falls, full moon, snow, ground too frozen to dig, we wait. In spring, we plant flowers, hide a black dress in the back of the closet, wait. We wait in summer, thinking how soft the ground will be for them, how warm. Lightning never strikes twice, the well-wishers say, but we've seen its blinding blue light, so we wait. Wait for the knock, the ring, the siren, the silence, for the sympathetic voice, for the man with his hat in his hand, for the white-coated woman shaking her head. Our hearts are water balloons in a room full of needles. What can there be but agony? We read books, cook dinners, smile for the camera, knit, refill our husbands' pill cases. If wait time were a currency, we'd own the seas. If it were fire, there'd be only scorched earth. The relapse. Mated swans build their nests atop sedges piled high in shallow water, far from the shore where predators teem. But in flooding rains, fast-rising water can threaten the clutch. Toil as they may to elevate their grass-lined cradle, the swans sometimes fail. And when no exertion can avert ruin, submersion, the common pen simply swim away. Ornithologists defend the bird's desertion as the instinctive expectation of future broods, but I judge them heartless. When you relapsed, we delivered you home to the pillowed comfort of the couch. Day and night, we guarded you from texts, temptation, flight. On the third morning, withdrawal ravaged your brain, and every molecule of you wailed. You fell to your knees and begged, please, Mommy, please. If you love me, let me go just one more time. I labored to raise you, to lift you from the flood. But peering down into your face, eons of instinct whispered, swim away. Now, the good news is, I've been in recovery for 13 years. Thank you, God. My daughter has been in recovery for 6 years and is about to receive her master's degree in addiction counseling and will be just an amazing, amazing counselor as a result of her life experience. And this poem celebrates the journey we've made together, and the wonders that we've achieved with hope and prayer and hard work. It's called Hoven Week, which, by the way, is an incredible canyon in Colorado that has lots and lots of ruins built into the side of these beautiful limestone cliffs that are crumbling and in ruin, but still just engineering marvels. So it's called Hoven Week. Here, the ancient ones farmed the mesa atop the rim of a meandering canyon, carved their homes, their silos, their kivas into the walls of steep sandstone cliffs. You and I creep closer to the edge of the maw, daring to see the crumbled ruins below. Holding hands, sure we will save each other. If the ledge gives way under our weight, we smile and take another step and another. Even your father calls us back, enough. But you and I know this ledge walking well. We've danced on edges of our own making, explored paths of exhilaration no one else could fathom or forgive. Danced alone as all addicts dance, even as our dances devolved into madness. And then you, a damaged daughter, saved me. And then I, a mother damned, saved you. Now the voice of a park ranger, godlike, calls us back from the precipice. Grousing, we stumble back, hide our relief. We did not really want to see how it ended. So I have another couple minutes. I'm just going to read you one poem from a new collection I'm working on. It's a collection of sort of portraits of some wacky people that were in my life growing up. And this one, the wackiest of all, Mr. Bird. It's about Mr. Bird, spelled B-Y-R-D. Mr. Bird wore an eye patch to cover the black hole left when a big buck careened over the hood of his car one morning, its skull smashing the windshield, its antler gouging his eyeball right out of the socket. Lucky it didn't impale his brain, my mother said, just taking what it wanted before stumbling back into the woods. Then there was his right hand, pinky gone, ring finger missing from the first knuckle up, the casualties of a table saw accident when a plank slipped, ferried fingers into the blade. Unabashed, he used his hands for emphasis when he talked, spread both palms in the air, fingers fluttering like birds, the right hand an incomplete mime of the left, a one-legged stork that still flew with its mate for life. The last time I saw him, only the thumb and broad palm of his ruined hand remained. When another workshop accident claimed the remnant of his ring finger, he jumped back, amazed, cried, "Fingers? You want fingers?" Threw his hand into the whirring blade, fed it a feast of flesh, bone, blood. Whenever Mr. Bird's name came up at dinner, my sisters circled index fingers around their ears. My mother buried her face in her hands. My father shook his head in silent horror. But I understood. Sometimes you surrender things the universe wants. Sometimes it gives back to you, a perfect dovetail joint, a day with only the collisions of atoms. So, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Barb. We're just giving you applause that you can hear because that was incredible reading.
Wow.
Wow.
Mr. Bird.
Mr. Bird, yeah, really.
Man.
Believe it or not, there were a lot of characters like him in my childhood. So
That's amazing. Well, it's such amazing poems. I have a lot of questions that I'm sure everyone does.
Susie put up a question. So please, absolutely keep putting up your questions for Barb. And of course, keep putting up your questions for Elizabeth. And we will grab all your questions for the Q&A. Just share everything as you think of it. Barb, you got so much love in the comments. You'll have to go read them later. Every single poem was just such incredible imagery, so visceral, so gorgeous. Thank you so much.
you're welcome. Thanks again. I'll be back.
Okay.